Minimalists.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Amy's question though real quick, because like, how do you recommend I teach my 8-year-old daughter about quality versus quantity regarding gifts? And I think that the trap that I've fallen into is exactly what she says. How do I teach my child? You don't need to teach your child anything regarding quality versus quantity. That truth, if she's open and paying attention, if you don't try to change her, even though right now, you know, her preference sounds like it's quantity. If you don't try to change her and she's open, she'll probably discover that at some point, like, oh, I don't need all these things. I just want the one good thing.
Yes.
Or maybe she won't.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like
Right.
there's no, this way is right and this way is wrong. And I think especially with our kids, the more we bring in that moralizing, the harder it is for them to figure out who they actually are and to feel confident in them as people. And again, I'm saying all this because I'm so bad at it, right?
Well,
and I'm learning a little bit by bit, like how to not be the teacher, the quote unquote parent who instills the right values, you know, and yeah.
The implicit message in Amy's question is, how do I teach her the good instead of the bad?
Or how do I convince her that this is
Right,
good and this
right,
is bad? Yeah.
Right.
And anytime we convince someone, even if it's our own child, we try to convince them of something, it places us on a pedestal. I love what you said there, Bex. You said you don't need to teach your child anything. That will sound crazy to some parents who are watching this or listening to this, right? And we just spent a ton of time on this Maximal episode. We're an hour and a half in at this point of this Maximal episode. And we talked about how persuasion is not consent, trying to persuade your kid to do something. And Ryan a moment ago talked about boundaries, setting up boundaries for your child. Well, there's only one reason we have to set up boundaries for our children. It's because we've placed them into a society that will damage them.
Yeah.
And so some boundaries, if you are living in society, are necessary. Ella, you can't play in the street because a car will hit you and it will kill you. Now, the Hadza that we were talking about a moment ago, there's no street for their kids to play in. There's no parenting going on with real humans, the Hadza, because there is not a society around them to inflict pain and misery onto them.
No, but there are boundaries still, right? They teach their kids about lions
Yeah.
and
Yes.
elephants,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
The things that will harm them.
Right. So there are boundaries.
Yes.
But yeah, the teaching, especially with respect to like, at least my view of it right now is this is good and this is bad, right? Like you can teach them how to shoot a bow and arrow or whatever. You can teach them how to go hunting for deer.
Yeah.
You can teach them
anything mechanical.
Right. There are things you can teach your
course.
children and it's not right or wrong.
Yeah.
But
I think what you're just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
I think
go
what
ahead.
you're trying to say is that you don't need to convince your child of anything. Yeah. Because I think that's the context of what teach is here. Yes.
Yeah,
there are mechanical
absolutely.
teachings that you need to teach a kid how to read and write, right?
I mean, even that, like kids will learn if they're around people that know how to read and write, that read and write on a regular basis, kids will learn how to read and write.
Without having to be taught.
I'm literally experiencing this intensely right now with Ella because she has been slow to learn, in air quotes, how to read. She has not been receptive to the teaching that she's received on reading. And instead of like, I think what we think is, oh, if I just teach her this way, then she'll get it at some point. No, she'll get it when she's not feeling pressured and stressed and anxious about it, when you're not forcing it upon her, when you're not, and she's started to, actually feel bad, right, about herself because she's being told indirectly that she's not good enough because she hasn't learned this thing. Right. And I think I know that's not what Amy's doing with teaching her daughter about quality over quantity. But in a way, when we do this sort of stuff, we're saying your preference for quantity is bad. And kids internalize, some kids obviously more than others, but like they'll internalize that and see it as like, you think I'm bad, or you think part of me is bad, right?
And so, we'll get back to that. I'll just repeat this because we might make this a quickie for YouTube here. But I think that we mistake quality as good, quantity as bad. But as we said a moment ago, if you go to a beach with 3 grains of sand, you're going to ask for more quantity. So it's always going to be situational. It's going to be personal as well.
Yeah.
And if your child does prefer quantity with respect to something over quality, we don't need to moralize that and say, well, that's actually wrong. Here's the better way to do it. Yes, for me and for Bex and for Ryan, I know that we tend to prefer quality over quantity in many areas. Like I would rather have 4 ounces of delicious coffee than 24 ounces of mediocre gas station coffee.
Right.
And yet for someone else, they might say, well, I really want the quantity here.
Right.
And who am I to convince you otherwise?
Right.
Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists private podcast available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.